Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to be talking you through my top 10 favourite images from 2022, busy year for my wedding video and photography business. A lot of these were from second shooting where I was a second photographer, so I'm going to give a shout out to each photographer that I worked with on the ones that are second shooting and explain a little bit about why I really like each one. So kicking it off, we've got number 10 here from second shooting with Callum Riddle. This one at the grounds in Elsick House, a venue that I'd only visited for the first time in 2022, despite living in Portlethen and Newton Hill all my life. I'd never known that they did weddings here until 2022, and I'll tell you, it is a stunning ground. A brilliant place for a wedding. Just look at the scenery here. Several different options for setting up your ceremony, which you'll see a little bit of evidence of a little bit later on, as another one makes my top 10. But this one here, the reason I love this, two reasons it's in here really. One is it was the first day I got my Samyang 50mm lens, which actually arrived on the morning of this wedding, just before I left. And it's so ironic that if the wedding was further away, I would have had to have left the house earlier and wouldn't have got it in time. So took it along with me and gave it a wee whirl where I could. And I really like the sort of depth that I've got in this image, with some of the flowers in the foreground being blurred out, the couple obviously in focus in the middle, and then more background blur, and just layers and layers of greenery throughout this image, and some really nice light. A lot of photographers don't like that sort of direct light look, but in this case I think it helps the couple stand out. The reason it's only at number 10 is because it wasn't a technically difficult photo to get, and some of the other ones I've got later have a little bit more creative nous put into them, or something technically challenging about them. So on to number 9. Number 9, also at Elsick House, but this was actually the first time I'd been to the venue, and this was my first time second shooting as well. This one was for Jade Essen, and the couple here, there's a lot I love about this photo. It's one of my favourites from last year for sure, but looking back at the EXIF data, there was one thing I thought, why did I shoot at that? It was taken on the Sony 35mm, so a bit more of a wide angle look to it. And for this, maybe it's just the old school photographer in me. I like the rule of thirds sort of idea here, with the couple down at that bottom left intersecting point, with the house more towards that upper right sort of intersecting point. And you get that sort of balance between your eyes go to either the house or the couple and bounce back and forth. And that's one of the things I really like about the rule of thirds. Couple of things that I'm not thrilled about, but one of which isn't in my control. The sun is out over at the far side, but it's a cloudy day in the scene, so it looks a little bit odd that we've got this warm sun coming in, but then this moody looking clouds. So that's just Scotland, unfortunately, at times. And then the other thing is, you probably can't see it, so it's not a huge issue, but I actually shot this at f1.8 with aperture wide open, which I wouldn't normally do with a photo like this, because I'm not going for that ultra blurry background with it, so I don't need to be open at 1.8, and there's plenty of light. So I think it must have just been a spur of the moment thing, maybe a bit of nerves from being the first time I was second shooting. But yeah, really love this image. I also like images where you can't see who the people are in the photo, and that gives a more I think it allows the viewer to sort of look at it as, oh, that could be me, a little bit more than if you see a close-up portrait, for example, of some beautiful model. You might think, oh, that's never going to be me. But this one, this type of shot, yeah, quite like it for that. So yeah, that's number 9. On to number 8. And this one is an interesting one because it's actually 2 friends of mine where I was going to be an evening guest at their reception, but the photographer they'd booked, the package they'd booked only covered up until the speeches. And so I asked, or he asked, would you fancy taking some shots and providing some coverage from the evening? And I thought, great, because I wasn't going to be drinking anyway, and gave me an excuse to be on the dance floor all night, which is what I love. And a couple of things I really love about this. I toyed with the idea of the colour version, but there's something a bit timeless about black and white at moments like these that I really love. I love that they're sort of going in for a kiss, but they're not quite there. So obviously a little bit of skill in the timing of that, because there is flash involved here, so it's not like I can just spray and pray. So I think timing wise, I've caught that quite nicely. The lighting's really nice with the flash setup that I had 2 off-camera flashes and 1 on camera, so a little bit of technical nous needed there. And then I also love shooting with guests in the background, where you can see another mate of mine, Roscoe, with his hands up in the air there in the background. So just a really nice moment to finish off the night. This one, if I remember rightly, I think I was actually on my Tamron 2875 here, so I would have been wide open at 2.8, but not blurring the background out crazily like I would have with a fast prime. On to number 7, and number 7 was also taken while second shooting, this time for Chris Henderson, who I was fortunate enough to work with a few times last year. So thanks for that, Chris, if you come around to watching this. Again, this one with the Samyang 50mm 1.4 lens, so you can see the difference in how much background blur you're getting here, and even those elements in the foreground as well. So again, getting that sort of layers and that 3-dimensional dimensions to the photo where you can build those pieces together to make the subject stand out a little bit more. I really like the lighting here as well, how you've got that sort of rim lighting with the sun coming in from the side. And obviously just a nice natural looking at the camera pose, which is not too difficult obviously, but it was actually spotting this that from the weddings I've done second shooting, I've found really quite handy, is when you're the first photographer, you almost feel like you're trying to keep things moving. You don't want to be hesitating and pausing and whatnot. Whereas as the second photographer, you can keep an eye out for wee compositions and things that you think might work. And Chris was quite happy for me to jump in and say, oh, I think I've seen something here. Can I go for a shot here? And he actually said to me at the time, oh, I didn't think of that. So that sort of backed up my theory of sometimes it's beneficial to be the second photographer, because you can maybe spot stuff that you've got that little bit more thinking time for. So yeah, love that photo. On to number 6, and again back to the wedding with my friends here, Jamie and Jade, and Zoe at the front there. This one, the reason this is in here is 2 reasons. More throughout the year last year, I've always been between a 24mm and a 35mm for my wide look, and I've been leaning more towards the 24mm, where you do have to get up nice and close to in on the action, but it allows you to get a nice sort of look to the photo where you're also getting a lot of environment in there as well. So this was on the Samyang 24mm, and the reason it's up so high, number 6, is it's direct flash, and obviously we're outdoors here. Normally I would bounce my flash off of the roof to just add in lighting how I want, and maybe use my off-camera flashes to get a bit more dimension if that's a look I'm going for. But here outside the Marcliffe, pitch black for our sparkler shot. I'd never done a sparkler shot before for photos or video, so it was a little bit of a, oh, no idea how this is going to go. But fortunately, with it being a mate's wedding, there was a few guys inside that I could grab and took them out to do my test dummy run with, and we got some interesting poses from Chico and Finn's with that one, but I won't show them. Maybe not. Maybe a bit too graphic for YouTube. But yeah, out we come into the walkaway here, and obviously you fire off loads, but this is probably the one I was most happy with out of them. Number 5, the first one from second shooting for Doug Gordon, who's actually more a second shooter himself, but on this occasion, John and Emma here, the couple, they were guests at a wedding that Doug was the second shooter for with Clark Joss, so I'll give Clark a wee shout out here as well. But Clark was booked on the day of this wedding, and they really liked Clark and Doug, and really wanted them to do their wedding, but Clark couldn't do it, so they asked Doug, would you shoot it? And Doug contacted me and asked me if I would be happy to second for him. And when I met Doug, we had a chat, and he was telling me about the couple and where they were from, and this guy was really a laid-back guy, and suddenly I started getting some bells ringing in my head of, hold on, I think this guy's a former pupil of mine. And I said to him, his name's not John, is it? And he went, yeah. And so I was like, okay, you better check with them. Both are actually former pupils, Emma as well. Although I don't think I taught Emma. If I did, maybe just a couple of lessons. But I asked Doug, you better check with them and see that they'd be okay with me being there, which I assumed they would be, because it got on really well with them. And he was, and what a laugh this wedding was, and a great morning with the guys, just good vibes all through the day. The speeches were superb, absolutely brilliant. There was tears, there was hysteric laughter, and me and Doug had a great day start to finish. So what I love about this one though is my normal setup for a first dance is to have 2 off-camera flashes behind the couple, and me shooting to then get that sort of starburst effect with the 2 lights in the background. However, all the guests here went off to one side, and my flashes are over at the right of this picture. So I started off with the lights in the background, but then thought, these aren't as good as I think they could be if I got the guests in the background. So I came round, saw the chandelier as well, and thought, if I can back up enough to get the whole chandelier in, get my lighting right as well, have the guests in the background, there's a lot in this photo that I love about it. So yeah, just loads of pieces here. And again, on the Samyang 24mm, which is another benefit of having that slightly wider lens, is if you're in a scenario like this where you do need that extra width to get something from top to bottom or from left to right, you're able to do that. So yeah, I really like this image. So let's see what's it above it, because there must be some good ones in here. Okay, number 4. This was from the same wedding as I think number 10, the couple at the start. This one though is on the Samyang 135mm, so a bit more telephoto. And what I love about this is these shots are fantastic to get as a second shooter. The first shooter, so it's Callum, again up the front there, he's getting the bride walking down the aisle, Lisa, and I'm trying to get a reaction shot of Ali here, looking at his bride coming down the aisle, but not getting Callum's shot. And if you think of the logistics of people standing up, second photographer down the back of the aisle, and trying to get that expression, sometimes you can get the expression, but the bride isn't far enough up the aisle yet. And when she does get far enough up, you're conscious of not wanting to be in the photo of Callum's. So this one you can just see at the bottom left there, somebody's arm, I think, from one of the guests that's standing up. So it's all quite tight for space, but lovely expression from Ali here as he's seeing his bride being brought down the aisle by her mum. And her dad, interestingly, is on the other side, but the only way I could frame it here was to get just the mum and Lisa in there. So yeah, lovely shot. And because these ones are quite rare to get both the bride and the groom in the shot without messing up the first photographer's image, that's why this one's so high up. Number 3, again, we're still at Elsick House here, and this is from the same wedding as the one I showed earlier where I was second shooting for Jade Essen. Again, this one's on the, if I remember rightly, I think this one is on the 135. No, I tell a lie, it's actually on the Sony 85mm. So again, just showing off some of the beautiful grounds at Elsick House here. A lovely moment, proud father walking his daughter down the aisle here. Cara, look, just turned to have a wee glance at her dad. And I love the framing here with the archway. And the reason this one's so high up is you're unlikely to be able to get framing like this unless the ceremony is set up the way that it was on this occasion, where they walk down here, but then they sort of turn off to the side and the ceremony is over left of frame here. So I had all this space as a second photographer where I wasn't obscuring anyone's view. I wasn't sort of standing front and center. And the other times I've been at Elsick House, different setups for the ceremony, I wouldn't have been able to be in that position. So just shows the versatility of thinking about your ceremony setup and what could result in terms of your photographer. So yeah, I love this one. Makes my top 3. And number 2 was one from an American elopement here with Kevin and Karen, where I was second shooting for Sam Brill. And a few things I love about this. It's that gloomy weather where we've got the sort of Scottish sort of church castle-y type vibe in the background here. Was it Drumtochty Castle, which is just further down the road, but the ceremony was in the church here, and Sam was great to work with. He just let me do my own thing type of thing. So I had this Samyang 135, and I was like, oh, I'd be keen to try and get a shot with this if I could. And the road here it's quite windy, and with it being such a long lens, I had to back up really far with this. And it was the only photo in the frame, or in the burst that I took, that managed to keep the very tip of the church here in the shot. I was as far back as I could go. I would have been into the mud, which I didn't fancy on this day if I'd went any further. And it just so happened that we've actually managed to get a really nice expression of both looking at each other there, walking along, and managed to get their car in the shot here as well. So yeah, really, really pleased with this one. Again, shooting wide open on that telephoto lens just makes those subjects stand out and really pop. And then my favourite, we are back to Glentanner, second shooting for Doug here, and again, I just love this. You look at Emma looking so proudly at John here in the foreground. You got Emma's mum trying to hold the tears back. So much pride walking them down the aisle here, and it's not normally a shot that I would have got on the day, because when you saw my earlier one of Ali, normally the second shooter is up at the back trying to get an angle of the groom's reaction, but you might sort of see here how tight the aisle is, and we had a look at it before, And because Emma was coming in from the right-hand side here, there wasn't really a spot that I would have been able to stand at where I would be able to get a shot of John, but not be in Doug's shot that he was getting. So what we ended up doing was I got a tighter shot with the 85 here, and Doug got a wider shot, which was also beautiful. But yeah, I'm going with the photos that I got. So that was I think that was my favourite of last year. Maybe not the most technically challenging one to get, but there's maybe also a little bit of bias there in that it's two former pupils of mine. And yeah, that's my top 10 for 2022. So fantastic year. My first year doing second shooting photography, and loved it. I've got a few more booked in this year, as well as a few that I'm the first photographer for. So if you like this, let me know. I'll be sure to do another video like this next year. Thanks for watching.